Breaking news! Liverpool are out of the Champions League. Well, it broke last night, but just a little bit slow on the uptake. I can't believe it. Liverpool 0, Paris Saint-Germain 1. 1-1 on aggregate, of course, but they gubbed him on pens, Vish, 4-1.
Yeah, very crisp, clinical pens. Is this the beginning of the end for Slot's Liverpool? I can only posit yes.
Well, again, because they've only got Arsenal chasing them, even if it's a case of can they win the league in April or will they have to wait till May?
Yes.
So that one's in the bag.
Or
that's safe.
it's a little bit like Mario Kart, where they're out front and it looks like they're not getting caught, but everyone behind them is actually faster
and throwing stuff
and throwing stuff as well.
Right.
Ousmane Dembele has thrown many things at them and, caught them a cropper here. Maybe Arsenal aren't throwing enough things at them.
I would agree with that, actually,
yeah. Well,
chucking a red tortoiseshell here and there.
Chuck a squid.
Squid. No one's ever thought about that.
Was that one, was it?
I think, is there not a squid that squirts ink?
That fucks me.
Yeah.
That fucking squid fucking with me.
Yeah.
Trying to drive a car here.
Not in a classic game, Jim.
Yes, I seem to remember ink going on the screen, but is it a squid? I guess it must be a squid.
That was just
Has to
round
be,
Jaws,
isn't it?
though.
Yeah.
That was just round Jaws.
It would be useful now, wouldn't it, for Arsenal to start chucking
Chucking squids
as
around.
PSG did.
Indeed.
Yeah.
I feel like Arsenal have done well to get a quick mention in this. But look,
It's more squid ink kind of paella or something that you... Is it paella that you would have with squid ink?
You can have squid ink pasta.
Pasta, yeah.
Yeah.
That kind of thing, that kind of vibe for Arsenal.
or like me, you can just simply write with it if you get the right fountain pen. But look, Peter, it was an epic encounter between these two. Arne Slot said it was possibly the best game of football he's been involved with.
And he's been in the Farmers League for ages, though, hasn't he?
Well, but the Farmers League beat the Premier League in this one. It was a pulsating game, Donny.
It was, and you got the feeling that Liverpool were never going to score. I just got that sense that it was just never going to happen for them.
Yeah. Did you really? Because
when that Konsa header didn't happen, I was like, they are not taking their chances and they're not creating enough of those chances.
Okay.
So I just felt that they were going to lose here. And I think that kind of passed on to the Anfield crowd a little bit. They didn't seem quite as kind of up for it as in previous fixtures and stuff. They just felt nervy. I think nervy is the word.
I don't think you can ever accuse an Anfield crowd of not being up for it on a
They're probably
European.
knackered.
I think that's fair, though, because...
What do you think that they thought this old chutney Newcastle?
No,
the
caravels are
we are saving ourselves.
They're going to be revving up for Sunday, yeah. I mean, I just got that sense that they were just a bit quiet, and maybe it was the way the stadium was mic'd up on the night. I don't know, but it just felt like all you could hear was the French fans, and it might just be fixture congestion. They've played so many matches this calendar year.
I think there was maybe a bit of nervousness because they've been so dominant, of course, even in the Champions League.
Yeah,
they won the first phase, as we know. They were top of that group, so perhaps that's what it was. But after the first leg, I think one could be forgiven for thinking, Liverpool have managed to get out of there with a 1-0 victory. Surely now they'll go on to win. But you had to reserve judgment with that because PSG was so good in the first leg. You think, well, surely they can replicate that in the second leg.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Liverpool flew out of the blocks, didn't they? And I thought in the first 5 minutes there was the potential here for the game to essentially be a reverse of what we saw in Paris, which I think was essentially what a lot of people were expecting. But I thought PSG they found their footing in the game really, really well, and then it was sort of evenly spread in some degrees. I think PSG had a lot more shots on target than Liverpool did, but Liverpool definitely had spells where they looked like they were going to score. And I know what you mean, Pete, about feeling like Liverpool were never going to score. There were times where it felt inevitable until they hit the post or until there was a really good block, and it just felt like PSG's goal is living a slightly charmed life here. But also in terms of defending deep in your own box, it was an absolute masterclass from PSG. They were so good at that, and I think they look very comfortable in that.
To see Diaz working so hard in the match and getting nothing out of it, I just felt like this is kind of written in the stars that it's going to at least go extra time.
And all four of the defenders put in brilliant individual performances. And obviously Vitinha was putting in brilliant performances. What a player he is. He looks like he'd sell you a definitely stolen pocket watch at a fun fair. But what a player he is. And I think on the crowd thing, Pete, I think a big part of that is the PSG fans, because the way they do that chant, we mentioned it on Reacts the other night, didn't we, or last week when we watched the first leg of this. They came to the Emirates earlier in the season. They're very loud there. Everyone's loud there, ha ha ha, etc. But the way they do their chant is half of the crowd do it, and then a bloke in the megaphone, the bloke with the megaphone decides when they've had enough, and he switches over to the other half, and they take it up. Yeah. So that chant is constantly going. In the big moments, they all do it, and it overwhelms the crowd, and it's just relentless. In terms of you as a home crowd with more voices, they don't give a shit about you. They're not reacting to you at all. They're not looking at you. They're not intimidated by you. They're not bothered by you. And Anfield doesn't really deal with that very often, does it? And I do think it made a difference to the crowd.
Is it the most European thing? Is they rotate the chants?
Yeah.
Not like us, we're all in.
Half of them are on strike for 30 minutes.
It's quite literally,
isn't it?
Jim, it's quite literally what they're doing is they are rotating the chant. Yeah. And we saw that Luke, Andy and I went up to Newcastle when they beat PSG 4-1. Now, St James's Park was never going to be denied that night. You know, the atmosphere is one of the best I've ever witnessed. I don't know, going to football, Craven Cottage, blah, blah, blah. But, but the away fans, though, despite what the Newcastle fans were doing, they were still going the whole time. And yes, they were drowned out for most of it. But there is something, perhaps, what you're saying about the atmosphere there. Yeah. And I think often people can, or some may understandably think that PSG, because of their money and so on, that this idea of them becoming a huge club is sort of relatively recent. No, they've been a huge club ages. You go back to the 90s when they were knocking out Barcelona in European competition. George Weah up front, so they've got a very, very solid and decent fan base.
Yeah, and I think they've always had that. The history of PSG didn't just start with the takeover.
No, totally, yeah.
And so they've always had an incredibly passionate fan base, and you only need to look at I suppose the players that have come out of Paris, and importantly the kind of players that come out of Paris as a city to appreciate its, I suppose, football heritage. And it's probably the first time, and we saw it. They've been playing like this all season, to be fair. But you saw it in Paris last week, and you saw it here, that they play in such a manner that it's kind of hard not to be whipped up by them.
Yeah, totally.
And so the fan base and the way the team play on the pitch, there is a degree of synergy there. And it's like one gives to the other and the other gives back. They're almost the 50-50, as Jim was saying, with the fan base in the crowd. But the other important thing is they somehow still have like Vitinha and João Pedro and Bradley Barcola, three kids who come in and like do all the really exciting stuff and like work really damn hard.
Well, this is it. Yeah. I think that PSG, I mean, they got rid of the deadwood, which was Neymar, Mbappe and Messi.
It's silly, but it's true.
But there is, I mean, okay, Messi's in the twilight of his career. Neymar, injuries, he's been booted to bits. No one's saying these are bad players. No one is saying it. But I think that when you have those kind of superstars, it does shape and mould a team, and you have to play to that. Because you wonder if, Emery was, of course, PSG manager for a bit, and Aston Villa, if they do the business tonight, he'll face his former club. With this group of players, Emery would have got more of a tune out of them in European competition. I know he won titles there and so on, but
Pochettino maybe as well.
Yeah, Pochettino. So I think Luis Enrique's got a really good squad, and I think that once Mbappe goes, there was that whole circus and nonsense around him. But also as well, when you've got him in your side, it's a bit like just give the ball to Kylian. There's that kind of thing. The collective unit that Paris Saint-Germain are now is stunningly impressive. And I mean, Vitinha, it's great for him to put in a performance like he has done and be seen on the kind of European stage doing this. And really for an English audience, because let's be quite frank, not many people in this country are going to be watching PSG week in, week out, right?
And not many people would have noticed him at Wolves. So,
yeah, sure, yeah, and it seems that seems a long time ago now. Yeah. So when people say, "Oh, well, he's been a good player for ages," and so on, well, of course he has. But it was just he showcased that to essentially the world last night.
On the biggest stage.
On the biggest stage, exactly. And he's got a fair few caps for Portugal. So again, no surprises.
I've never seen him not be really, really impressive.
Yeah, but he
stands out because he's so small, I suppose.
Well, yeah, and every now and again he used to do this thing, and he still does it from time to time, but. When he has a shot from range, he used to like flick it in the air to tee him up for a half volley.
He's got a decent effort on him, absolutely right. And I think again though that he's a glorious player, but it's all that industry. Luis Enrique said he's the complete midfield player, and he is in terms of modern football. If you had a player like him back in the day, he you know, he'd have that technique, the passing ability and so on, but he probably wouldn't move around the pitch that much. Maybe stay in the centre circle, or would be, you know, because that was the requirements back in, you know, 90s, maybe even noughties. But that's it. He's got the lot because he's got the technique, he's got the passing, da-di-da-di-da, but the engine on the man, you know, it's remarkable. And all those PSG players, you know, a lot of them are young, a lot of them are full of energy, great running, but you match that with all the technical abilities and so on, and the intelligence as well to take on what Luis Enrique's got them doing, the way they swarm, the way they, you know, double up and triple up on some positions, and then you think, well, hang on, they'll be short over that side of the position. No, they've all managed to shuffle across. Yeah. It's incredibly impressive.
And Doué has come on in both legs and essentially kept those kind of tactical themes going. Yes. And there's been no drop-off in the style of play and no drop-off in the output. He had a couple of pretty good shots last night. Didn't test Alisson too much, I suppose, but Liverpool kept it compact in that sense. They were very, very impressive. Another person I was impressed with was Gonzalo Ramos. When I saw he was coming on to take a penalty, as I'm sure most people did, was like, oh, is that a good idea? Is this ever a good idea?
No, well, there's a bit of a myth around that, because you can point to a number of times when it's actually worked, but when it doesn't work, it's obviously quite spectacular.
It just stands out, doesn't it?
You kind of just, but you always think of that situation as get a few touches of the ball.
Yeah. Well, I know what you mean.
But their penalties were excellent, though. Yeah.
I mean, we know what it's like bringing on players to take penalties against Donnarumma in England. You know, it usually doesn't work out quite well. But you're right, though. We talk about the focus and the team ethos and everybody buying into it. When he comes on, he sticks his penalty away with aplomb, by the way. Whips it into the corner, and he's beating his chest.
That's mad,
yeah, exactly. That's a guy who has not been involved in the tie really that much. An epic encounter, comes in and goes, right, well, that's my role. Bang, I'll execute that, and I will, you know, he's completely plugged in to what's going on.
I think the other player who, you know, he obviously scored last night, who I've been really surprised by, is Ousmane Dembele, because I don't think I ever truly rated him beyond, like, you have all the qualities to be a very good footballer. I don't ever think you'll use them to be a very good footballer.
As in, he's going to sprint.
Both
he's going to do all that.
He's pacey. He clearly knows how to.
But the decision making,
and also just like, do you want it? Like, are you happy being this luxury player? Loads of players have made very good careers out of being luxury players, and yet now he's essentially playing this like roaming false nine role where he puts in a shift. He's chasing down balls down the channel. I've never really seen him play as he has done this season.
And in particular, this calendar year, he's been playing like a man possessed.
And also at the same time, like when he was with Messi and Mbappe, it felt like he was a clown who was always was always cocking up for them.
Yeah.
But that's the way he was marketed.
But being brought in, especially as a young lad, into that environment, huge price tag as well. The expectation is enormous. You're basically saying this guy will supersede Messi, or this guy will do this, that, and the other. It's little wonder that, you know, he couldn't quite do it. But again,
he's had like two big moves, really.
Yeah, and PSG was a huge move as well, and he wasn't quite cutting the mustard, really. I mean, you know, it was not in the way that he's been chopping up all the mustard of late. Let's be quite frank, but I think again, when you have all that, sometimes actually some players. Yes, you have an Mbappe or an Neymar. It's just go and play, you know. And I know that's a far too oversimplified version. It clearly doesn't work out like that because they played in amazing teams and systems, and under Luis Enrique, by the way. But with someone like Dembele, again, sometimes players need to be a bit coached a bit more. They need to maybe be given a slightly different role in the team. Whatever it is, Luis Enrique is finding an incredibly sweet tune out of that player.
He's made him into arguably the best player in Europe. And actually, when you look at the numbers, I don't think that's controversial, is it? I mean, obviously Salah would be in that conversation as well. But as you say, this calendar year,
Rafinha might be,
24 goals. Yeah, we'll talk about Rafinha later, and we'll enjoy doing so. But I was really impressed with the goal actually from Dembele, because it's one of those ones where it's. Of course, there's a mistake involved from Liverpool, but the little hop he has to do to get himself in position. It just showed
that the whole team were just more energetic slightly. They just were really up for getting that goal and pulling it back and possibly taking it.
Arguably should have had another one on the break. And again, the way the dynamic of the game was going to go, they knew Liverpool would go at them. And if there's one thing they can do, PSG, among all the other things, is, okay, fine, we've got great pace and we'll hit you on the break. Yeah. But it could have gone either way. I think the general feel I sort of picked up from reading around this pundits that people thought maybe PSG were over the two legs.
Yeah, I think.
But again, I don't think as a sort of a neutral, although I say neutral, I always want the British sides to win in Europe, as you know. I don't think you know. I think that's really worth anything. I just think it was an amazing encounter.
Yeah.
The fact there was only one goal on the night.
Do you not?
Yeah, I think it was one of those just epic battles
Definitely.
that captured us in a way that perhaps we haven't had for a little while, maybe in the Champions League.
It's what we want the Champions League to be, isn't it?
Yeah,
and I think it's
two
what the Champions
heavyweights
League
here.
is at its best. Even though there are only 2 goals across those 2 games, it was absolutely captivating from start to finish in both encounters. Really, really high quality the whole way through. I think as well, we all inevitably know we're going to see more penalty shootouts in the Champions League now that the away goals rule has gone, and it does add to the drama.
Yes,
but it's funny, isn't it? Because it felt like a sort of penalty shootout free zone, the Champions League, which was sort of a nice thing for your nerves.
well, indeed. But I tell you what, though, Pete, that talking of the game being epic and a great battle, how flipping impactful on the senses was it to have the on the penalty shootout, have the camera shooting them from sort of behind the shoulder of the taker, if you see what I mean, like square on. And the crowd, it was almost like 50-50, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That was...
It was a lovely
It was cinematic, Peter.
It was cinematic, and they've been going for quite a few times. Sort of the tail wagging the dog of EA Sports FIFA games. But I mean, it was so I think affecting. It very much confused the 5 Live commentators.
Oh, go on.
Isn't it?
Mo Salah, whose penalty record for Liverpool, he's scored 8 of his 52 penalties. That doesn't include spot kicks, but that just gives you an indication of how prolific he is from this sort of distance.
What?
Is he okay?
Well, he should be taking the first one.
Yeah.
It's just
Get the rubbish ones out of the way.
Just gives you an idea about how prolific the man is from this sort of distance. Doesn't sound like very.
Yeah.
Doesn't sound like he's very. But I think.
Do we still have a dump button? Oh, no.
Can I just? He's taking the penalty now. Forget it. I've got to move on to the next player.
He scored.
Oh, God, it's 9 in 51 now.
Would you not think that this match really exposed how dependent they are on Salah firing on all cylinders? Because he was relatively anonymous. He wasn't great, and back in the day, he'd have like Mane and Firmino to cover, and he doesn't have those players to sort of pick up the slack a little bit. And it just felt like it was a game too far for Salah.
Well, I mean, was it Mendes who was the left back? Did a glorious job.
Yeah,
on
over
didn't
both legs, didn't he? He was brilliant.
I think. Well, I mean, Luis Diaz. There was a couple of moments where Diaz might have shot, and he checks back inside,
Yeah.
and so on. And I think that maybe they thought, this is coming. We just need one goal here. And I thought, all right, it'll come. Whereas maybe if that's a little bit later in the game, chances are fewer. Diaz just have a go at that.
Yeah, we also see in those kind of situations when there is a lot of anxiety about willing to score, you actually see that extra touch more often because they want to create a better percentage of opening. So
Salah did have a chance early on, didn't he? That you would expect him to bury, and he put it wide. But yeah, I think you're right. They essentially stopped Salah and to a large degree stopped Liverpool.
But I think it's a fair point that Salah's been so effective in the Premier League this season. I mean, there's obviously chat of the Ballon d'Or and so on. He's in the running certainly. But yeah, maybe you're right, Peter. Maybe when he doesn't pull something out of the bag, he may well feel slightly aggrieved and think, "Oh, come on, somebody else." But
and these are games where there are naturally very tight margins anyway.
Mind you,
not every game's like this.
He felt that in Paris, and it was Harvey Elliott who produced the goods when Salah went off the pitch. But look,
he came on, didn't he?
But the fact is, you've got two contenders for this tournament go head to head, and it's a penalty shootout that separates them. So again. It was a massive encounter between these two. I want to keep avoiding the word epic. It was an epic battle. It was great. Yeah, and I think that whoever goes through, I was watching the game going, whoever goes through in this are going to be the favourites now. I know Real Madrid are Real Madrid, and I know Barcelona have Rafinha, and I know Bayern have Harry Kane. But you have to say one. I don't want to let this get lost in among all this chat, but perhaps the man of the moment for me was the PSG fan with a megaphone behind the goal during the penalty shootout.
Was it a megaphone? Was it a duck horn?
I don't know, but I just heard this noise. I'm like, what the bleeding hell is that? And then you saw the penalty. You could see this bloke, and I thought, this guy.
How many?
He's pulling the strings here.
Well, how many? I mean, we spoke about him earlier in the show, but like, how many? One man's allowed a megaphone. Can everyone have a megaphone?
Well, that would.
Could we have?
Good question.
No, you got
thousands
to have a leader.
of thousands of megaphones.
You need your leaders, and you need your
Yeah, but like
Yeah, but
you just
you're right,
automatically
though.
make the crowd louder.
It's a
couldn't you?
stewarding issue, isn't it?
Yeah.
If surely if one guy can have a megaphone, everyone can have a megaphone.
Yeah.
But
Why is he allowed a megaphone?
No, I think.
but what's that cut-off point? Hang on, we've had
Yeah.
10 megaphones now. We're going to have to stop people
No,
with
because
megaphones coming in.
Away
How
from
do we
home.
police this?
But think about it though. The bloke with the megaphone, that's obviously quite organised, right?
Is that club sanctioned then? So
possibly.
Liverpool,
Well, it must be. No, but it might well be.
Yeah, but Liverpool just have to go, oh, well, they've decided that they've got one man with a megaphone. All right, we've decided that every fan gets a megaphone.
Put them all together.
The Carabao
Like
Cup.
in The Simpsons.
I think
Yeah.
in the Carabao Cup on Sunday, I think the unlovable Amazon Saudi Arabian Amazon alternative Sailor, I think they're funding everyone's going to get a scarf, so everyone could get a megaphone. I think.
They could do. They
Wow.
could do. Well,
Do you think that put off Darwin Nunez? Do you think the duck that's been haunting him?
maybe. I mean, I actually thought he's hit that penalty quite well, and it's in the corner. It's just,
But there's something about it.
There's something
I think,
about him.
I think, what Pete alluded to,
a great save.
the crowd as well. As soon as he steps up, the anxiety ramps up. And it becomes a really important penalty in that regard, because if he scores it, the release is such that you feel like Liverpool would be in the ascendancy. But
I think you look at the two sets of, or the two teams' sets of penalties. You mentioned Doué, Jim, the 19-year-old scores that winning penalty. Again, just smashes it
Such
in.
a plum.
Absolutely. No, the only one who kind of did the sort of, that was in doubt was Vitinha, where...
That was a sneaky penalty.
Oh,
wasn't
it was,
That
yeah.
was a spiv penalty.
Yeah, I'll say your watch and I'll take your money. Oh, but you've not got the watch, see ya. But yeah, I know what you mean. So, but it was interesting because after the game, Arne Slot said, "Oh, we as Dutch know how to lose penalties."
yeah, that's true.
Right, and the similar record to England, really.
And in the last minute,
Luis
with extra
Enrique said it wasn't extra time.
time. Oh no, we didn't even need that.
Didn't even need that. Luis Enrique said penalties aren't a lottery. After the game, you watch how drilled PSG were on those penalties.
Yeah.
It's no coincidence that and he said, we dug deep. And I think that he was kind of alluding to, well, we dug deep because obviously Liverpool's tails are up and they're at home and they need to press for the winning goal, blah-de-blah-de-blah. But if this goes to penalties, we're totally fine with that. We've got Donnarumma in goal, who you know how good he is at saving penalties, and we've got everyone who is very well drilled on this, and it showed really, quite frankly. So it was very impressive for them once they get there, because again, they just didn't seem that they were going to be denied at all. And the scenes of celebration after the game showed you what it meant to them, and they will go on with an enormous amount of wind in their sails. A stat I just wanted to bring up here is PSG didn't commit a single foul in the first half last night. It's the first time this has happened in a Champions League match since Opta began analysing the competition in 03-04.
Amazing.
It's an incredible stat, isn't it?
Yeah.
That you'd be well within your rights, considering how Liverpool play, and they're going to come at you just to go, I'll take one for the team, or even, he skipped past me, I've gone. But it shows you how focused and tight they were.
They're just a really classy organisation, aren't they?
Yes, indeed they are. From the top to the bottom, Jim. We are joking. Sod off. Now, Trent went off injured. Liverpool fans are worried that he could have played his last game for the club.
Yeah, that would be very, very
It would be
sad
a great
if that was
shame.
fallout of this.
Yeah, so unlikely he'll play against Newcastle on Sunday. How are you feeling about that one,
I'm
Peter?
sure. Who's that going to affect? Dan Burn? He's clearing his big raked passes.
Dan Burn will be centre half, will he not?
Yeah, well,
probably
it's all
will, yeah.
clearing them. They'll be
They've got to clear them.
Yeah, true enough.
Clearing those diags.
Have you managed to find yourself a ticket?
I have managed to find
Yeah!
a Ramble listener very kindly allowed me to buy one of his spares.
That's delightful.
That's lovely.
He does not want to be talked about on the show. He doesn't want to be doxed on the show. But he did say that he wants to be known as a unnamed Mossad agent. So,
Oh, right.
yeah.
Well,
So me and him are going to the football.
Here's a part of the conversation that Pete had with him on the phone when Pete said, "Who am I speaking to?" He just simply said,
Mossad.
"There we go." Elsewhere in the Champions League, Bayern beat Bayer Leverkusen 2-0.
Boring!
Is it boring when I tell you that Harry Kane's the first Englishman to score 10 goals in a Champions League campaign? Thank you, Vish.
Quite dull.
Yeah, well, come on.
Everything he does is dull, except he does the most exciting thing on the pitch.
What about
Mad,
that?
innit?
I thought up yours.
It was a rubbish goal. It was a lovely assist for the second.
Lovely.
Actually, his goal was brilliant, wasn't it? You say it was rubbish. Sort of trapped it about 2 yards out and just calmly slots it in. You got to respect that.
I mean, it hit him, didn't it? He didn't really trap it.
Yeah, but he reacted.
He did react.
Just like Dennis Bergkamp did that time.
Actually, it was Bergkamp Vest. He didn't know anything about the first touch, and then taps it in. Yeah.
What's the matter, Jim?
But the difference is Kane did it on a bigger stage.
Yeah.
And he meant
Champions
it.
League.
He meant it as
Yeah.
well. He meant it as well. Barcelona through to the quarterfinals as well. Rafinha and Lamine Yamal were at it again.
My God.
Come
By the way,
on.
Rafinha, one can forget that this season he's having is I don't want to say an anomaly, but I mean he is a contender for the Ballon d'Or.
Yeah,
definitely.
100%. Yeah.
But
yeah.
totally. But like his level this season, at the age of 28, is almost a bit of a throwback that he's peaking at the age of 28.
I love it, yeah.
And he's been a slightly different position because, you know, he leaves Leeds when when they just survived relegation. And obviously a quality player, hence Barcelona sign him. But what we're seeing he's doing this season,
with the crowd on his back as well.
Yeah,
But
totally.
he's really thrived in that pressure, though, hasn't he? Which has been great to see.
But the crowd are quite far away from him, though,
Sure,
in that sort of a temporary home that they have at the moment.
I love that Rafinha is very, very skillful. He's very effective with both feet. And he's got so much to his game. His movement is brilliant. But one of the fundamentals of his game is he just hits it so hard.
Yeah.
Those balls have to go off on a stretcher after he's put them into the net. It's just a glorious, glorious thing to see. And I love the partnership with him and Lamine Yamal. They really look for each other and they really work together well. Yamal, there was a stat in the commentary of the game that's saying, including for Spain, Lamal's goal was his 60th goal involvement. Mm-hmm. He turns 18 in July. Yeah. It is phenomenal stuff. It's like, you know,
if you had 60 goal involvements for your school, you'd be quite pleased with that at that age.
Thrilled.
Oh dear. The one thing though that really kind of downright almost aroused me yesterday, seeing all this, you know, Champions League footage and so on, was you had Daniel Sturridge, Clarence Seedorf and Wayne Rooney as pundits, and for whatever reason I was just looking at one moment where the camera was on Seedorf and Rooney, and I just thought, who'd win in a fight out of those two?
Because you can tell Seedorf is hard.
Yeah.
He did say that penalties are a lottery, which I was disappointed by, but it's Clarence Seedorf, so you can let him off.
It's a fight a lottery, is that what you're saying? I don't know. Just Clarence Seedorf is like a flipping Marvel hero, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wayne Rooney could beat up an entire rough pub.
I don't know. I feel like you'd have to come into his swinging arc.
I think Rooney would tire before Seedorf, and Seedorf would edge it on that. I think Rooney's
takes a lot.
Rooney's not feeling the punches as much, for sure. He's got a lot of padding, shall we say. Yeah. But I think Seedorf's just got more stamina.
Yeah.
One of them's 10 years older than the other. And you wouldn't be able to It's true.
Oh dear. I just thought we should end on an appropriate note after all that battling last night in the Champions League. All right, coming up after this, Manchester United are rebuilding Old Trafford, and it has an umbrella.
Buy two, get one free, and I picked up a little Argentinian, and I ended up having to take a couple of free transfers. It was one of Daniel's specials. We were trying to get a couple of players in at the top of my shopping list, but they were both free transfers.
When you've made your name as a wheeler and dealer, there's not been much wheeling and dealing, you know?
Fuck off.
Oh, no, I didn't go like that. Fuck off.
Well, I've got a name as a fucking dealer. Don't say that. I'm a fucking football manager.
Well, back to the Football Ramble, everybody. You're right, football podcast.
Oh, no, money ball, you twat.
Yeah, dearie me. Let's move on from wheelers and dealers and talk about Manchester United and Sir Jim Ratcliffe. Yes, they've revealed plans to knock down Old Trafford and build a brand new 100,000-seater stadium in its place. And if it's not called New Trafford, I'm out.
Yeah, good point,
and here's why I'm out, Peter.
I mean, wow, they must have come into some money. What's going on? Where did all this come from?
I don't know.
Wow.
I mean, it is quite stunning. An Old Trafford Regeneration Task Force has been organised by minority owner Sir Jim Ratcliffe, who is in charge of the project. I tell you what, for minority owner, he doesn't have to talk a lot, does he? Yeah. He's the JD Vance of Man United.
He's very public, isn't he?
Yeah. What Lord Coe is involved in the
famously a stand-up guy
in the task force as well.
The team responsible for this is called the Old Trafford Regeneration Task Force. Yes. Big Jim just loves naming teams, doesn't he?
So, people of that ilk love committees and those kind of titles on committees.
OTRT.
Something to put on your LinkedIn, isn't it?
OTRTF.
Exactly, yeah.
Oh dear. Well, I mean, does this excite you, Vidushan?
Aspects of it did. One of the mock-ups had us winning 3-0 at home.
Yep.
I'm thrilled about that.
Yeah, good.
Hopefully that'll be sooner than 5 years. But
Yeah, the first half performances have been piss poor. So, is it worth £2 billion? billion though to improve those.
3-0 depends who against. Yeah.
All right.
Right now, you'd take it.
Yes,
You'd fund it yourself.
Yeah. And all I'd have to do is stop eating sandwiches, I think.
I think that's it.
Yeah.
All those
The
free
avocado.
lunches you bring in for us.
Yes.
I didn't realise
Get
how
on the
many of
soup.
them were having those free lunches.
I know, it's absurd. As Sam Diss pointed out on Instagram, one of the mock-ups had a breakdancing stage outside the stadium, which is a lovely touch. I'm a big fan of Step Up 2, and if we get that audience in as well.
Yes, indeed.
Imagine a
breakdancing stage.
team coming into Old Trafford when outside they've been served. They're gonna be so intimidating.
Yeah.
Totally.
As like from 1 minute, literally in the space of 12 hours, going from Manchester United would have run out of money at the end of the year, which actually isn't true, but whatever.
Yeah.
To the next morning, be like, by the way, new stadium, $2 billion.
Yeah.
It's like brilliant.
He's a genius.
Yeah,
He's a genius.
but then Jim Ratcliffe going, be done in 5 years. The club will be in a very different place in 3 years' time, and then the CEO, Omar Barada, saying there is a risk that United will fall further behind because of the investment into the new stadium. Because, we've seen it with Arsenal, we've seen it with Tottenham Hotspur. Just the mixed messaging from the same core was...
But I find it stunning that the people said, well, this kind of project would normally take 10 years. And he went, but... it's going to take 5.
So,
Because he's on the phone to someone going, do it in 5!
Do it in double speed. Whatever you're going to do it in double speed.
That's literally a storyline on a smaller scale, but literally a storyline from Arrested Development. As they come about a dysfunctional family and how they continually fuck
And they
up.
make some fake houses.
Yeah.
Well, he said it will be built elsewhere, and then it'll be they'll take it up the Manchester Canal. Oh, there we go. The bit of history for you. And he said it would be like Meccano was the words he actually used.
Brilliant.
And then he was very sure of
Can we
himself.
have some AI stuff in there as well?
I'm sure
Stick
we
that in
can.
there?
I'm sure we can.
Yeah,
And
NFTs,
all
lovely.
that. And he said no, it would take 5 years. Yeah, 5 years, I think. And it was I think at the end of the sentence.
Well, the other thing about it was when he talked about the free lunches.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I feel like everyone who's listening is up to speed, but.
This will vindicate that.
Yeah, they put restrictions on the canteen, so employees no longer get lunch for free. And so Jim went, nobody gets a free lunch. I don't get a free lunch. I've never had a free lunch. And then he tries to put it immediately. He tries to put it immediately at the consumer's door, and he's like. And also, it's the fans' money. They're the ones paying for it. And it was like, how many times you see people in those positions flip cost-saving measures to make an enemy out of employees, for example.
Yeah.
And at the same time, by the way, it's a fans' money, and they'll have to pay more of it because ticket prices are going up as well.
And also as well, what he said about the government, he said we can do this quickly if the government get going.
Yeah.
And he's putting it on the government.
But
as
also,
well,
the planning regulations still need to be, I suppose, stamped essentially.
But he mentioned that a few times.
To be clear on it, though, what they're hoping for is not for the government to build the stadium, isn't it? It's for money for the immediate area around it to be regenerated, which is still obviously cheeky, and this is a ploy to try and get that.
Well, what do you think of the actual design itself? Because it is a bit of a circus at Manchester United, and is he kind of leaning into that? Because it did look like a circus tent to me.
I love the big satanic umbrella. Apparently, the three tridents represent the devil's horn on the badge.
Yeah.
I'm going to sprinkle it with holy water when it's done. I'll tell you what.
I'll get him.
Yeah, like...
Imagine that. Ratcliffe just melts.
Don't worry, lads, I'm going to do you all a favour here.
But do you not think that people were sort of like quite surprised at like Jim Ratcliffe? Because a lot of people watched this Jim Ratcliffe interview. For some reason, it took up most of the pre-match for the Newcastle West Ham match on Monday,
which was another epic battle.
Which is another epic battle, PSG-esque. But you sort of get there and. I think people thought he's this dribbling, like cost-cutting Mr. Burns kind of character, which he is. But like he brought some pretty decent points and stuff. But then that's what happens when somebody takes over. They're not a dribbling maniac. They are quite relatively normal inside that space. But nickel and diamond the employees of the fucking of the company. It's not the way to do it. It's never the way to do it. But it's always the way they do it. It's always the first thing they go to. It's always the vending machines. It's always the workers' rights. It's always overtime getting slashed. It's not like. Those people you sort of see a lot more than everyone else. The Glazers. They've done a lot of this, haven't they? Maybe get rid of those.
Maybe the money they were taking out of the club, they were saving it for this new stadium project.
Yeah,
they put in a really high interest account.
Were taken out of the club.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, you've got to give him credit there.
But it is. I mean, I thought the whole interview basically just said we have been spending, a lot of people have been saying like Champions League money for a Europa League side. They're not even a Europa League side now. So they're not. So they need to sort of maybe spend a bit of time.
You have in the interest of good practice. Right now, they are a Europa League side.
Okay, fine.
Yeah, but
in 2 days' time, that could change.
But we know that next season they definitely won't be a Europa League side because they're not. If they win the competition, they go to the Champions League and they're not going to finish 6th or whatever it will be.
Oh God!
But this is a hugely ambitious project. Like it's something we've never seen the likes of before. So I mean, some Manchester United fans may well feel quite excited about this, which one can understand. Old Trafford has had a lot of scrutiny over the years. A number of Man United fans say it's too old, or it needs either
there are too many mice,
there's too many holes, not enough free lunches, all that kind of stuff. It needs to be regenerated or knocked down and something else built. And if you look at the artist impressions and so on of the stadium, I mean, it looks absolutely enormous. In terms of the scale of the project, it's quite impressive on a sort of a base level, if you see what I mean. The details of it, the way that they would want to transform the area, hence, trying to get the government involved with the regeneration of the surrounding area, which I understand can be quite divisive in terms of gentrification and all that kind of stuff. It's a different, I don't get into all that. But there is something to be said of regenerating an area, trying to make it a bit better. Again, into the weeds of the political chat, I don't want to kind of go with this. So, I mean, do you have any kind of positive feeling or hope about this, Fish, or do you just think it's a load of old bollocks? I
mean, a lot of it does look impressive, and a lot of things on paper seem impressive, but even a lot of sentences in the document that was released are immediately followed by like bits of nonsense, and I get that that's generally how these brochures work.
But fluff is different to nonsense, though.
No, it is. But then there's little things like, the 3 tridents that are there, based on the badge. Kind of get that. And, one of the lines is there was, on a good day, it would be visible from Liverpool.
That's funny.
What?
Yeah, that's so unnecessary.
I think there's a lot to be said about the regeneration side of it. I don't like the idea of basically painting yourself as the good guys by simply strong-arming the government into giving you certain permits so you can do what you actually want to do.
Yeah,
there isn't real interest in regeneration. They just know it's part of this getting ticked off by local authorities
and the space they need around the stadium and so on.
And so like little things like people joke about the tent, but like one of the things that has been an issue at say like Emirates Old Trafford, which is the Lancashire Cricket Ground, which is on quite literally the same road, is that. And they rely a lot more on concession stands and stuff like this. One of the issues in cricket, for example, is when it rains, there's no cricket, so people feed out into the concession stands. But there is no roof over there. So if you have like something over the top, that is obviously quite a big deal.
Which is what they're doing.
Yeah. So all that makes sense. And generally, the fan experience around Old Trafford, the football ground, is terrible. I totally understand with improving that, but just so many bits of it are like. I don't know. Like I'm kind of impressed by it, and then at the same time, in the age of like AI mock-ups, I'm not all that impressed by it. And then set against the interview he does
7 fingers.
Yeah, and set against the the interview with Gary Neville. There are so many things there, like the 40,000 that they took away from ex-players, and then Gary Neville comes up with this idea of what do you throw a fundraiser with like one of Harry Maguire or Bruno Fernandes turning up and sell tickets for, and you'll make that money back. And then for him to be like, actually, that's a great idea. I had no idea, but we should get on that.
Yeah.
It's like, if it's not him, then it's the people around him who haven't really thought any of these things through. And there was a point where they talk about there was an issue with ticket resales, like a load of tickets that were generally initially valued at £40 for adults and 25 for kids were returned and then resold for 66 quid. And Ratcliffe makes a point that only 500 of them were actually returned and then resold at that figure. And then he says, he's like, well, to be fair, that's not the biggest deal in the world when you consider all the other things going on at Manchester United. And it's like, you're so close.
Yeah.
Like,
you got to remember that Old Trafford as a place of footballing worship, it really has hurt pretty much every football fan that is not a Manchester United fan over the years, and including the Man United fans, I suppose, over the years. So I think they should allow for £50 a piece you to go into Old Trafford and just kick the shit out of it.
Make it into a big rage room.
Yeah, you just get half an hour and you get to kick and that's how they demolish the building.
They'd save on the fees for the old wrecking balls and so on, wouldn't
Yeah,
they?
exactly. Yeah, just smash the crap out of Old Trafford.
Pay 75 quid, you get to go on a wrecking ball.
Genuinely, I reckon he might take you up on that. Actually fuck the former players. That's a great idea.
They're going to stay in the current Old Trafford, aren't they? While this is built,
This is going to be built next to it.
So so they could actually do that on the last day of Old Trafford. Just knock it all down.
Well, on the long-term plan, Ratcliffe said the club's going to finish in a very different place in 3 years' time. I thought it was a 5-year, to where it's been in the past, in my view. I think it will become the most profitable club in the world. I think we may well finish with the most iconic football stadium in the world, and I think we will finish up winning silverware again. A lot of I thinks.
A lot of I thinks in there, but they've made a lot of
finally
changes.
got to the silverware at the end of the paragraph.
Made a lot of changes, made a lot of sacrifices, but maybe if they do become the most profitable club in the world, this will reap dividends for the Glazers.
I thought the other thing I should say, I thought Neville did really well. I was actually
a very competent
impressed.
interview.
Yeah, but I think he wasn't afraid to ask questions that were going to piss off Jim Ratcliffe, which is great.
Yeah,
well, I think I think
he knows a lot of the situations inside out.
But that's good because he's using his position to do exactly that.
100%.
Because a lot of people may well think,
he's walking the walk there, isn't he?
Yeah. Will I be asked back to the club? You think about certain owners banning certain former players not to the stadium, all that kind of stuff, and he just thought, sod you, mate.
He saw what happened to Frankie Clark, didn't he? Don't want to end up in there with him.
No. Oi, you talk to me like that. Frank Clark's outside, ready to push you in the Manchester Canal if you behave badly. All right, everybody. Coming up after this, Richard Keys is backing Aston Villa to win the Champions League. Go on, Keys, hey! Aston Villa versus Club Brugge, as we now call them. Tonight, 8 p.m. Villa, of course, take that 3-1 lead into tonight's match at Villa Park. It's a big one. PSG are waiting in the next round of the cup. But Villa have got to be careful here, Jim, because obviously they've got a good lead, and it's the kind of lead that you would want with the away tie being the first game. But there's no room for complacency in this competition.
Not. Especially not against Club Brugge, because they had a kind of mad 5 minutes, which led to 2 Aston Villa goals, didn't they? They own goal and gave away a really stupid penalty. And I think actually they're a much better team than that scoreline suggests. I think with a lead like that at home, Villa will get through this. They'll get through this tie, but they're going to have to work for it. They're a good team, but I just think that lead's insurmountable.
Yeah, Villa are obviously favourites for this, and it's just all about how they approach the tie. Because again, the emphasis on the home side, especially if you are certainly on paper at least the better team, the emphasis is to go at them. So surely, Vish, we're going to see Villa, I would have thought, in the first half an hour or however long, try and put this tie to bed as quickly as possible.
I think even if they didn't want to play like that, the crowd would be such that they would just end up doing it anyway.
Sure.
I think the atmosphere there has been outstanding. They're on a really solid run, kind of out of nowhere a little bit, because they've been quite fluctuating. But they've won 3 in a row. They've got, as you say, this opportunity here to. I say this as someone who obviously isn't an Aston Villa fan, but at the start of the season, when you saw their draw, you were like, those were a lot of really nice moments that you are guaranteed. And I'm not saying like this is a bonus in the way that they should be grateful for it. I just think they clearly treat every game, whether it's an away trip as well, with a sense of, can you imagine if we win this one? Not a sense of like, take snapshots of your surroundings, let's go and have some 9% beer. There is a real sense of like, A, they belong here, because in part of the squad they have, but also like, shit, like every game, taking each game as it comes is a bit of a cliche, but it feels like from top to bottom and from inside and out, everyone associated with Villa are doing that. And, the fact that the loan signings have come in and fitted in seamlessly is in part because Aston Villa are a Champions League club. Because I can't really speak to Marco Asensio's transfer situation or the machinations of how he ended up at Aston Villa, but certainly with Rashford and Disasi, they're clearly playing with a sense of, we're lucky to be part of the ride for this, because they're having a lovely old time.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's Rashford in particular.
Yeah.
He's moved to a club. I mean, it's an enormous step up Which is odd, really. If you
No. Fundamentally, it is just a step up.
Well, it is a step up, yeah, because historically it wouldn't have been really. But John McGinn actually spoke about those 3 loanees that you mentioned, and he said 3 really good guys. Obviously, come with big reputations, but they haven't shown any ego. They're pretty low maintenance. I love that. They work hard to get their careers back on track. So again, very aware of the situation, and that's kind of a ringing endorsement, really. But that Champions League experience that Asensio brings, and also Rashford as well, is pretty handy for a fixture tonight.
Absolutely, and it just gives
Specifically
us so
tonight.
much attacking depth, though, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And obviously, Disaster's hit the ground running, which is he's had a funny time at Chelsea, didn't he? It's called Axel Disaster at times, but I think possibly just because that's such an obvious joke to make.
Maybe.
There were also spells he had where he looked really good.
But they've loaned him out for a reason.
Yeah,
Obviously,
sure.
it didn't quite fit. But man of the match against Brentford in their 1-0 win. So that's
Emery's very good at that, isn't he? Emery's very good at getting a tune out of players that have maybe sort of stagnated elsewhere. And you know what? I mean, looking ahead to a game against PSG, Emery's old club, it's very exciting stuff. There's a big carrot there, and they'll be the heavy favourites to get to it.
Well, that's right. And that's what they've got to do is concentrate doing their tasks
Play
tonight.
Tonight's game, yeah,
exactly,
indeed.
yeah. But you are once again, Jim, echoing the thoughts of Richard Keys, because he's backed Aston Villa to win the Champions League in his most recent blog. Keys said in that blog, "I've had the feeling all season Emery has identified the Champions League as his primary target." A feeling he's had all season.
Yeah, so
nothing to do with the results.
The line before that,
yes,
in this quote is spectacular. If I may add to it,
please.
Villa have come up short in the Premier League. If they'd had a go, they might have got close or even won it. But I've had the feeling all season Emery has identified the Champions League as his primary target. So there you go, everyone. Villa can't be bothered with winning the Premier League. Yeah. They've looked at it and gone, yeah, we could win this, but I'd rather win the Champions League. Well, so let's just think about that.
True. I mean, often a bird's eye view of things is quite handy and can help you see things that maybe other people don't. Think about how lofty Keys' position is. He can see down on the birds, let alone everybody else. So, anyway, Keys said, he went on to say about Emery, he loves Europe. Villa surprised us all back in 1982, so why not again? That's maybe how Emery is thinking. Europe is certainly his signature dish.
Do you think Emery's looking back at 1982 and thinking we could recreate that?
I think he absolutely is.
Do you think he's also looking at the Falklands War, which happened in 1982, and think, well, that could happen now? How's that any relevance to?
He will have. 1982 would have come up in conversation.
No, I know,
but not in the way Keys.
But the Keys is like, well, it happened in 1982, and as we know of that year.
No, I know none of you were born.
E.T. came out in 1982. Actually, that probably still did quite well.
Maybe Return of the Jedi. I think it's 1982.
Right. Okay.
Either or it was
Michael Jackson's Thriller. Actually, quite a big year, that wasn't it?
Ooh,
I was born.
Well, there you go. Jim might be born again this year.
Yeah, that's it.
Don't know.
You never know. Well, look, yes, I think that's the thing, isn't it? Villa, next round is PSG. The round after that could be Arsenal.
Could be Real Madrid as well, though, couldn't it? It could be Real Madrid, or Atletico,
and then I don't know, Bayern or Inter in the final. That's a nice one. Bayern and Inter have got one.
You've got to beat the big teams to win big tournaments, don't you?
If you're unlucky with the draw, yes. But Arsenal are hosting PSV tonight.
I think they'll be all right.
I think they should be. They could lose 5-0 and still go through. They could lose 6-0 and win on pens.
What have they saved themselves for?
Nothing.
Play the normal play.
Surely there's like a striker in the academy. Just play him.
Yeah. See what we got.
I know it's easy. I know you got to be registered for that as well, Peter. That as well. I mean that's the bigger thing, I think. But you can't flout the rules.
The team he's going to put out is very interesting to me because I wonder if he'll rest players. He doesn't. He seems to hate resting players.
Sterling has to start.
He absolutely does. But we might see
another 7 goals.
So I mean, you say Sterling has to start. They needed a goal at Old Trafford at the weekend, and he put Kieran Tierney on in a forward position instead of putting Sterling on. So
trying everyone out, isn't he?
Yeah. So I mean, it'd be very, very interesting to see what type of team he puts out. And in that way, it's quite an interesting thing if you're a nerd for Arsenal, which I am.
Can I throw something out there that is just something I wonder just from the reaction to Arsenal's league form? The Champions League, I feel like, is a very serious consideration, as it kind of was last year, actually, because of the way you were playing last year. But this year, I feel like obviously a lot of focus has gone into the league, and the idea that the Champions League could, help, boost your season was kind of posited as if the league can't work, then maybe the Champions League. But obviously that'll be huge.
Yeah, but I think I just think it's really unrealistic, though, isn't it? Which is possibly why that type of thinking is a bit pie in the sky. If they do get Real Madrid or Atletico Madrid, that's really interesting because those teams are it's an exam, isn't it? And it's a really interesting test of where Arsenal are at this moment in time. It's been a disappointing season. They've not performed as well as they would have, they or I would have hoped. But you still have to turn up in those games. So the idea of them getting, winning the Champions League it's daydream stuff from here, to be honest.
Who would you rather Arsenal played in the next round? Because Arsenal are through. I mean, it's the most foregone conclusion we've ever seen.
I'd rather play Real Madrid.
Interesting. I thought you might
that
say
idea of it being that kind of exam, that MOT of what you currently have and where you need to get to.
So to be without any shadow of a doubt the underdog in the tie. There's something
preferring to get Atletico Madrid is the dictionary definition of be careful what you wish for.
It absolutely is.
Enjoyed that injury list, did you?
Yeah.
It's about to get bigger.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah. Well, some of the PSV fans are making the most of their trip to London. A group of their ultras went to Wimbledon v Cheltenham last night.
I love this,
which is lovely. I love a bit of that when they just think, let's take in as much football as we can. I did wonder if there's some teensy, if they just thought, is there any team in London playing in red and white stripes that we can go and watch? Cheltenham Town, okay. I don't know if they were playing in them last night. They were the away side. But Andy Brassel did inform us that there were some PSV fans there, and he said that there was one of them having a tab while leaning against the no smoking sign.
Was it a tab? Was it a left-handed tab?
Well, from the Netherlands, you never know. Yeah, you never know.
A left-handed tab.
Very enjoyable.
Marcus and Pete, you are quite, maybe not so much anymore, but you're quite voracious football tourists, aren't you? I don't do this enough, but you two travel a fair bit into Europe to catch football. Have you done
before children?
Well, that's kind of what I meant. Yeah, but so did you ever do this is my primary game, and then I'm gonna go down and see whatever?
No, I haven't done that.
I
haven't done that to be quite frank. That's the kind of pervy stuff that maybe Andy Brassel would do.
Right. I mean, to be fair, I did watch half a Kosovan under-17s League 2 fixture.
Half.
Peter,
I was very hungover.
Peter, I want
to go and have a word with myself.
I once watched a training session for a side called in Antofagasta in northern Chile.
Nice, love it.
I was travelling in South America at the time. I didn't go specifically for that because that would be
give us a game.
Yeah,
and you just say on the side, good, I like.
Yeah, I'd like that though, that you could take it as much football. Although I like to check out the plazas and the Fanta.
Yeah,
and
the
exotic European Fanta.
And can you recreate cornflakes that we have here? Because no country abroad seems to be able to do it.
Will you open the tin of beans I brought to your restaurant?
Serve it with these. Hot or cold, I don't mind. I know that makes me weird, but up yours. So they were there. They saw Cheltenham. I think Cheltenham won 2-1. So up yours, Andy. But 2-1 is no good for PSV tonight.
No.
They need to win by a 6-goal margin to take it to extra time.
Play for penalties, Arsenal. Put the youth team out and play for penalties.
Yeah. So how about that one? Will we see Mr. Zinchenko playing for Arsenal, do you think?
Possibly, yeah. I mean, he might start as a midfielder tonight. Mm-hmm. It could be Kieran Tierney left back, Zinchenko in the midfield. He's brought him on as a midfielder a few times, but who bloody knows?
Yeah. Zinchenko was recently asked if he's comfortable answering questions in Portuguese. Obviously
Which is an odd question.
It's an odd question, but I don't know the surroundings of it, so maybe...
It's probably in a press conference, yeah.
Quite possibly,
especially Champions League ones where they have the translators.
Yeah. And he said, no, because I only know the bad words. It's Jesus' fault. He only taught me the bad ones. And I thought, well,
yeah,
give us a whirl.
Somebody in the comments said, finally a sports person is blaming Jesus for their shortcomings. Usually they blame him for the glory.
That's right. Now, obviously, Atletico Madrid are hosting Real Madrid tonight. Real Madrid 2-1 up in the tie. Tensions have been running quite high between these two sides this season, as you could imagine. After scoring the winner in the first leg, Brahim Diaz squared up to Diego Simeone.
Why?
Well, squared up from a distance, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
And reportedly shouted, "Speak now, speak now, speak now. You spoke yesterday, speak now."
The needle in this game is unbelievable.
Speak now in front of the cameras.
Absolutely unbelievable.
It's like again, you've forgotten, haven't you, that there's a second leg? You bloody fool.
They've both been complaining about referees and the treatment that each team gets. minutes, Danny Ceballos said Cholo still hasn't gotten over the 2 finals he lost to Real Madrid. It is
Doing?
Fever pitch, yes.
Oh dear!
You know this man who's fueled on hate.
Yeah.
Let's give him a bit.
Come on, I really hope it lets it go win. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
Jim, but I
imagine,
really do.
imagine his carry on.
Oh, it'd be stunning. I mean, even Ancelotti's been dragged into this. Simeone's managed to get him
dragged
into
by the
this.
eyebrow.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
you know what it'll be. You know, like there are moments in The Sopranos where like the heads of 2 feuding families meet, and they're like, someone in your ranks disrespected me, and they're like, fine, I'll give you permission to kill him.
Yes.
That's what Ancelotti's going to be like. Yeah, no, I know, but just break one of the legs.
Yeah. Would it be a power play if Diego Simeone came out? Did you see that chap who he manages an Ecuadorian side? I think it's Barcelona Guayaquil. Segundo Castillo, his name is. Sorry, it's
Played
written
for
down.
Everton and Stoke.
Yes, indeed. A black and white tuxedo he was wearing during one of their couple of.
So good.
If Simeone, because we're used to him in black, and he will be wearing that. But if he came out wearing that, it'd be like showtime.
Or if he came out,
what is about to happen here?
if he came out in a string vest.
Or the flared skin of Zidane.
Is this your king? Yeah. Killmonger in Black
Just a
Panther.
necklace with loads of ears on it.
Yeah, and you know as well that at some point in the game we're going to see his attack dog Conor Gallagher come on as well.
Yeah.
He always comes on about an hour or something like that if he's not starting, which he tends to come on.
Love that. Love that for him.
Chase it all down.